With 7 world titles, 103 race wins, and 103 pole positions, Hamilton is a living legend. Hamilton has been driving in the Formula One since 2007 when he started at McLaren. 15 years later and over 300 race starts, Hamilton finds himself at the third fastest team of the moment. However, after his old rival, Sebastian Vettel, announced his retirement at the end of the season, rumors spread whether Hamilton would follow. While Vettel is just 35 years old, Hamilton turned 37 at the beginning of the year and has a contract till the end of 2023. Since the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix of 2021, fans and experts have frequently been wondering about Hamilton's future. A large group of people didn't even think Hamilton would start the first race of the year. However, Hamilton has shown to have an incredible strong mentality, but is also used to winning races. The W13 is far off the pace to win a race on its own, and Hamilton's complaints about the car can't be denied. After winning so many races and titles, people argue if Hamilton even wants to drive in a car that hasn't a real opportunity of winning races till he is 40. After all, Hamilton has always said that he doesn't want to drive till that age. Toto Wolff, however, would like to keep working with Hamilton for many more years. But what exactly does Hamilton want? Can Hamilton work together with his talented teammate while fighting for the championship? Should Mercedes even try and continue to work with Hamilton for a longer period of time? Let's find out. Hamilton and Mercedes have one of the longest-lasting and most successful relationships in F1 history. Since Hamilton joined Mercedes in 2013, he has been able to win 6 championships in 9 years' time. Only in 2013, 2016, and 2021, another driver won the driver's title. There hasn't been anyone so dominant for such a long time in F1 history. Even Michael Schumacher, who won 5 back-to-back titles with Ferrari from 2000 to 2004, wasn't as dominant as Hamilton in his time at Mercedes. The only record that Hamilton couldn't break from Schumacher was winning the most consecutive world championships. Hamilton won 4 consecutive world championships, which is 1 less than Schumacher. Toto Wolff has always praised his star driver and has recently also made a statement about his working relationship with Hamilton. I think Lewis is a legend. He is an amazing person and extremely talented. He has performed under great pressure and has won races that we didn't deem possible at times. I hope I can work with him for a much longer time. But what does Hamilton think? Hamilton was recently asked whether he will make it to the 400 races. 400 is a big number. In the first place, I just want to be grateful for what I have achieved at this point. I still feel young, and I feel I have enough left to give. I enjoy what I have been doing. I'm really proud and enjoy working with this amazing group of people. I enjoy the sports more than ever before. We have amazing people who are leading the sport, and we have good conversations about what direction the F1 should go to. This statement implies that Hamilton continues till at least the end of 2023, which dates the end of his contract. Toto Wolff hopes to keep working with Hamilton after 2023. At the end of Hamilton's contract, Hamilton is short of 39. If he means what he said, that he doesn't want to race till he is 40, he should retire the latest at the end of next year. However, Wolff implied something else. Wolff recently said that he and Hamilton had conversations about the future. These conversations were not about the next 2 or 3 years, but rather about the next 5 to 10 years. He is therefore confident that Hamilton can reach the 400 races. However, in order to do so, Hamilton has to drive for at least 4 more seasons after this year, which means that Hamilton has to drive every race till he is 42. But can you still be competitive at that age? Fernando Alonso shows that age is just a number. With 41 years, he is still driving around like a young, talented driver that is racing for his first victory. The big question is, can Hamilton bring in the same fighting spirit as Alonso? Hamilton had a rough start of the season and was bouncing more than he was driving a race car. The Mercedes had extreme forms of porpoising, and Hamilton was visibly annoyed. Luckily, Mercedes solved that problem from the Silverstone Grand Prix onwards, but they still lack a lot of pace. If we look at the data from the last couple races, we can see that Hamilton is on average 0.5 seconds per lap slower than Red Bull and Ferrari. The Hungaroring showed even bigger problems for Mercedes as they showed some real issues with mechanical grip and couldn't stand a chance to the front runners. When interviewed, Hamilton showed concern, but was also optimistic about the future development of his car. It is understandable that the fighting spirit is there when you see your team slowly closing the gap with the front runners and being able to fix a big issue with your car. However, many wonder how Hamilton would feel in a year from now if Mercedes weren't able to close the gap with Ferrari and Red Bull. It is easy to remain positive when there is success, but it becomes harder to do so when the results are lacking. But even if Hamilton decides to extend his contract and go after the 400 races, should Mercedes want to do so? It is very likely that if Hamilton wants to continue, him and Toto Wolff will sign a new contract, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the right choice to do so. The 2022 season is the first season since 2016 that Hamilton has difficulty beating his teammate. Especially in the early stages of the year, Hamilton was regularly beaten by his teammate, who scored consistent points. However, the last couple races showed an opposite trend and an insane amount of racecraft from Hamilton. But it isn't only racecraft that determines whether it is a good choice for Mercedes to extend his contract. There has been at least 2 seasons where Hamilton and his teammate didn't match well. In 2007 and 2016, Hamilton was intertwined in a fierce fight for the World Championship. In both cases, the working relationship among the drivers came to a standstill, and the drivers blamed each other for doing secretive things to gain an advantage over the other. In both of these cases, Hamilton lost out on the world title by marginal differences. However, it was the internal damage done that hurt the most and eventually led to the departure of Hamilton's teammates. So was Hamilton difficult to work with in times of competitiveness? Since 2017, Hamilton had the perfect second driver in the form of Bottas. He scored enough points to secure the Constructors' title, but was never a championship contender, although Bottas declared a new version of himself every year. George Russell, however, is from a different category. Russell is one of the most talented drivers of F1 and is eager to win races and championships. Hamilton recently said that he thinks that Russell is ready to lead the team in the future. At the moment, the relationship is fine between them, but that is often the case when there are no race wins and championships on the line. If Mercedes does manage to close the gap to Ferrari and Red Bull and have a real chance of winning races and championships, then Russell would put up a much better fight to Hamilton than Bottas. The last thing that Mercedes wants is to have another internal struggle like what happened in 2016, especially if the competitors are much closer in terms of race speed. Whether extending Hamilton's contract is a good thing depends on how confident Mercedes is in managing the tension when both drivers are championship contenders. Just like we slowly start to see tension building between Sainz and Leclerc as Ferrari tried to help Leclerc win the driver's title at the cost of Sainz. We have seen an example in Silverstone when Sainz was asked to hold up the competitors so Leclerc could win the race. This ultimately didn't happen, but it was a clear sign. At the moment, Sainz is closing in on Leclerc, which makes it more difficult for Ferrari to pick a number 1 driver. This would be the same at Mercedes, as both drivers are number 1 drivers. There is no denial to Hamilton's racecraft, and he currently doesn't want to think about quitting. However, it also depends whether Mercedes is capable of building him another race-winning car. It is unlikely that Hamilton will want to spend his last years of his career in the midfield, but if Mercedes is able to offer a competitive car, then it is also likely that Hamilton will continue. However, if there is one thing we learned from the world of F1, is that everything can change in a heartbeat.